Okay, hello. So you're most likely watching this because you need some help with a weapon or just want to get into importing. So this is a generic basic tutorial for getting a weapon into Arma. Not really too much fuss with it. It's not completely product worthy. It's just getting the basics done and how to get things through certain loopholes that may come up. So I have a weapon found on Sketchfab. So I go here, it's found here. It's a fairly decent weapon, and it's got plenty of modules that we can use. Overall, it's not that big in size of vert count. It could be lower. Preferably, you want to be around 5 to 7,000. But with nowadays PCs, you can be relatively alright, but Arma doesn't like too high poly stuff. So you most likely have things like this. It's completely out in the wild. You have no idea if this is the right scale or what else you need. So this is going to be using Clocks versions of Arma tools. I have both, but I've moved over to Clocks now. I'm currently using Blender 4.1, so I'm currently on the most recent version. If you follow through, you'll be able to easily go into your preferences, install the add-on, and as you can see, it goes to your Arma tools root folder, etc., etc. So this is also going under the complete understanding that you know how to get configs and how to work configs. With the P drive, I've got to run through the setup here. Most people probably already have it. But you'd want to go into your tools, make sure you have Arma tools, open it up. So I'll currently have everything preloaded, but that's fine. Your original thing will be you want to go into preferences if you don't have this already, and you want to change to your P drive wherever you want to have it. So just create a new folder in a hard drive if you've got a lot of space for it, and register it here. And then you just want to mount it here. I've obviously already got it mounted, so it should show up like this in your file explorer, and won't be as full as this, but that's because we need to just get the base game files out. So if you go back, you'll see Project Drive Management. You can extract game data and run, and then this will go through. It takes about 30 minutes or so, depending on your PC, and it can get everything through there. Alright, simple shit, shouldn't be that much. Next thing is add-on builder. I already have it open. I've just opened it twice, haven't I? Yep. So most likely going to end up like this. I already have this set up from a testing that I was doing, but the generic thing that you want to do here is you will see, if this is the first time, that this is a lot less. I'm going to include a list in the description or comments, and you just update to that. This will cover literally everything with modding. Usually you can be quite good out of the bat, and you're fairly decent there. However, we're now running on time, so that should be the generic setup for these things. You should then have in your P drive an A3 folder which has everything here that you can use, so it's mostly for proxy access. So additionally, you'd want to have Arma 3 samples installed, because that's where we're going to get the weapon from, at least with all the LODs. So if you're unfamiliar, there's also a complete page on LODs, or level of details, and it goes into everything with your fire geometry for every kind of weapon, vehicle, building, character. But obviously just reading through it won't really help you that much. So we're just going to go through into what we have here. So generically you want to import everything. So we're going to import the test weapon. So if you come down here, everything's set up alright, you should see Arma 3 model P3D, and if you just go to your Arma 3 or your Steam root folder, wherever your samples are, add-ons, test weapon, and there should just be test weapon 01F. So we're most likely just going to be using this for our standard of size, and also just generically to see what's going into a weapon. So a lot of these you can hide, so for instance the geometries you can hide, and the shadows you can hide for now. we're not going to worry about them. We're just going to use this as a guideline for us to see how big we want our weapon and where we need to rotate it to. So obviously first we need to do this, drag it down, scale it down. Just reset the cursor to what origin there. So I'll just run through those commands shortly. We're just going through S and G to move everything. This is also going under, should have basic understanding of Blender. We're matching this up just generically, it doesn't have to be exact, but you want the trigger guard to roughly be in the same place, just so we can kind of rely on other animations for now. I'll run through animations in a further video, because they can be quite tricky and painful to set up. So now we have this. Your weapon should be kind of outlying the current MX build that they have. So you want to do Control A, all transforms. This should freeze everything, reset all the scaling, yada yada, so everything in the export will be alright. So to begin with, what we're going to do is go up to it here in our season collection. We're just going to rename this to Res 1, preferably like that. As you can see, this already has a resolution 1 and a view pilot in our visuals, so we can just move this one up. And now we can actually just get rid of this one. So I'm just going to hide this one. Well, both of them, to be fair. You'll see that these proxies still hang around. They are not our proxies. So actually, yeah, I will go ahead and delete them. Obviously, you'll see that pop out. So just do that. So we're not going to rely on the test weapon proxies purely because you can simply transfer them across, but it's better off doing it manually. 1, because you know it, and 2, because it's more reliable. So you should now be left with just your memory LOD and your resolution LOD. So we should be in a decent-ish place. The first thing that you want to do is with our actual res LOD is you want to come down here to a little green triangle. You'll see that Object Builder has LOD properties is P3D LOD. So you just want to click that on. It should default to resolution with an index of 1, so that's the closest LOD to the player, or just the generic LOD that is used. So we want to go into our main properties first, create a name, just call it LOD no shadow 1. Cool. Now you can forget about that. The main thing that we want to worry about is proxy access. However, if we want to get one ready for instance with the muzzle, go into the edit mode by pressing tab, and then if we just click 2 points here and here, you now have your cursor there. If you do Shift S, cursor selected, go back out of tab, and then just click the little plus sign, you'll now have a brand new triangle that should say unknown 1. No need to worry about it, we can click on it, or as saying just there, we can just click on it here, and it should come up with this little box here, and you want to go for the little folder icon, and then you should be able to go to your P folder. Everything should be built out, so you should then see A3, scroll all the way down to data F, and in proxies, and then because this is a muzzle flash, you want to go into the muzzle flash. You can choose whatever muzzle flash you want. I generally go with the Mark 20 purely because it's the safest bet. So that should now come up here. You should be able to see it. It's not that great, but you've got muzzle flash Mark 20, muzzle flash Mark 20. You should now have a muzzle flash. It's not completely working though, so now we just want to worry about what the weapon is and what the weapon is doing. So I'm going to begin with the mag. You can have a magazine proxy, but for this we're just going to have a mag which is in the model that we can hide and view. So if you press L, you should be able to get everything here. And if we just drag that down, oh, I still have those selected, so we'll just do that again. So that is the mag. If we go back into a little green triangle up to the top, create a new vertex group, call that magazine. and then just click assign a few times just to make sure, select or deselect select just to see if it definitely is there, and then that should be that your magazine is set up. What we also want to do is just select everything. This is dependent on your UVs, so if you have 2 UVs for the entire gun for the materials, then you want to split this up, but you want to create a camo that we can now just assign for the entire weapon. This is what we're going to use to assign the texture to. That we'll get into it in a later bit. We're just going to finish off our proxies by going up to the top here, and you want to pick a generic place. I'm going to pick roughly there. Shift S, cursor to selected, should now be roughly around there, and we can now scroll back down, do another plus, and we now have a new proxy that we can use. And now this one, you want to go back to your P drive, you want to go into your A3, data F. This time you want to scroll to your proxies. I got lost a bit there. Scroll all the way down. You should see weapon slots. In here you have magazine, muzzle, side, and top. So your top is your scope. Your sides are your lasers that you can attach. Your muzzle is suppressors, everything like that. And then obviously magazine slot. If you want to have interchangeable magazines that are tied to the actual mag that is in the weapon, you would have that rather than just a mag on the weapon. But we want to use the top for the scopes. So if we save now, we should now have everything set up for your proxies, apart from it's not fully set up there. So if you click the muzzle flash and you create a new vertex group, call this Zachlech. I don't know actually know how to pronounce that. Just going to go with generic words. And that should now be there. So if we go into it and assign it, deselect, select, cool, it is now there. So this will be all exported as one res LOD when you come around to exporting it. So now we want to worry about the memory LOD. So do Alt-Z, or you can go up to the top here and choose X-ray. You'll be able to see all the vertice points that we need to worry about. There we go. So you want to go into edit mode, get the vertice out by pressing 1. Just quickly unselect everything just so you're not messing with things, because if you do mess with things in the memory LOD, you can break them. So the first thing that you want to worry about, if you just scroll up to the top, you should see these two. I'm not going to try and pronounce them. If you just select both of those, so these are the start and the end of the barrel. So if I go into front view for this, which is technically the side view, and we just move this back, these need to be level with each other and also straight with each other. Otherwise they will create some like bendy bullets whenever you fire. So if this one is out of line, say over here, it will trace that way and fire a bullet over there. So you want to keep them in line completely and just hope that you don't mess with them too much. The next one that you want to worry about is eye. So this is the iron sight view that you would see. So you can move this basically wherever you want, but you want to keep this generically in the center. And you can go for whatever one this is. This will be overwritten if you do have a scope, which is nicer because then you don't really have to worry about it. Obviously this gun doesn't have iron sights, so we don't really have to worry about it too much. We just need a generic location to look down the rifle. Most of these other things you can look into, but the memory LOD is in charge of controlling all kind of things with animation pivots to hiding things, and for instance these little ones here. So you'll see that these ones usually are tied to this one. That is to do with your GL. So that is your page up, page down zeroing, and where the eye changes to on that. But I'll obviously leave that alone just so you don't ruin too much. You can keep most of this stuff in, to be fair. You can feel free to delete it, but if anything breaks, obviously it's down to that. I generically just keep it all together. just to make sure that I don't delete anything here. So this should now be functional in a sense. Just to clear out a few more things, what we're going to do is go to the materials. This already has a material assigned, but we're just going to change that to camo, just to make sure that it's in line with that one. And with Object Builder, what we can do is assign a texture and an RV map through Blender so it doesn't ruin or take up time later on going into Object Builder and assigning there. We're just going to use a color for now. So we're just going to go for a good old green, and probably bump down the saturation on that just so it doesn't blind us whenever we get in game. So that should now go across. The RV mat I'm going to leave untouched. I'm going to touch on them on a further video with the hand animations, just to make sure that we can just get a weapon in. So that should be us set up with the scope and muzzle flash. We should have the entire gun. What we're going to just do is quickly do that again, just to make sure that the object transforms are definitely there by doing a Control A. So this should now be set up. However, we need to make a new res LOD, but we can just copy this one. So if you do Shift D and then right click, you should now see res LOD whatever. What we're going to do is just change that to View Pilot. So this is the one that is used for when we want to look down the weapon, so whenever you're zooming in or in first person. So to get this to work properly, you want to go over to the little tab, green triangle tab, go to Type, View Pilot. Obviously you'll currently see that the proxy access is null, so this is the time that we can use the copy proxies. So you want to select your res one and then Control click or Shift click your View Pilot and then copy proxies. You should now see that they pop up here. If you hide your original res LOD, you'll see that the proxies still stay where they are, which is good. So that should now be your View Pilot and your res LOD done for at least the basics. And this is without any further groups. That is for like if you wanted a bolt charge or a animation going on. Those are in further vertex groups that you can find within the big list that is in the Model.cfg for the sample weapon. For instance, a trigger animation. I usually use trigger alone, no one really pays attention to it. But that should be our Blender side done for now. So what we can do is if we select this one, select that one and that one, we should now have all three of our LODs selected. And if you go File, Export, actually before we do that, we're going to go to our P drive, we're going to create a new folder. We're just going to call this @test mod. Go into that folder, create add-ons, and then here we're going to create a further test weapon. So this is your actual PBO. So we're going to copy that location and then go back to the export. We want to use this one, don't use that one, we haven't converted that one, but should luckily just only have Glocks 1. So click selected only and export P3D, exported all three LODs successfully. Should now see demo scene. We're going to quickly rename this to test AR. So if you double click and open that or load up Object Builder, I just have it set as a default. You should now be able to go into these, double click these, you should see your proxy and your selections here. Yeah, they appear working there. You should see your memory log, they should be populated, which they are. So what I was going on about with the textures is if you were to select the camo in your first LOD and then press E and you give it a moment just to run, usually you'll pop that up. You should see that it has texture here, which is just our dark green, and this would be where also you would show your RV map. What we can do preemptively is just create a selection. So that will create a hidden selection as such, as long as you get it set up right with the Model.cfg from what I know. Quickly do a Control S just in case. But it appears all working there. Just double check the magazine is there. And if we go back here, this should now just be a empty P3D. What I'm going to quickly do is, obviously I have this set up in a different folder. Open this up with code. Let's open up in my other screen. Yes, trust all authors. So come here. What you want to do first is create a config.cpp and a model.cfg. So your config doesn't really matter where it is as long as it's got CFG patches, but your model config needs to be where your P3D is, otherwise it won't work. So I'm going to quickly flip on over to my other one. I'm just going to copy across what I have here. So first of all, your config, we just need to have a CFG patch. Most of these can be left alone, we're not really touching them. I'm just copying an MX for now and barely having anything here. I've also just basically flunked ACE just to make sure it doesn't cook off or jam on me without the add-on options. But you want to change your model location to where it is, so test weapon, and then if we just change that to test AR. So I usually go with a square bracket for the display name, just so it pops up to the top, just so you don't have to say it, search there for a while. You can always change that later on. Generically, a lot of this stuff is pretty simple to grasp, as long as you know configs. But we're just going to hijack the MX. We're just going to use the MX as a standard just to see if we can actually get it in game first. So next is our model CFG. So this is the most important thing for your animations. So if we come and quickly copy paste this over. So as you can see, you have CFG skeletons. So this is the actual rig or bones of the weapon itself. So this is where you define parents for groups. So in a very weird way, well, not actually that weird, your vertex groups are your bones. So for instance, if I came back to the AR, we have the magazine and camo. In our model CFG, you can see that we do have a magazine here. It has currently got no parent, so it usually goes child parent, I believe. And this has everything here that is needed. So what we'll do is quickly change this to that one, and this class here for your CFG models needs to be the same name as your P3D, otherwise it won't be applied. So we'll just quickly do that, and then change the skeleton over. So here you'll see selections. We'll just change that to camo. Then you have this one, so your muzzle flash should be working based off this, as well as your select sections here. It will show up randomly, or it will show up permanently if it's not within the sections. And you can have different kinds of animations here. For instance, this is a rotation one. With the magazine, what we have is a default one for just hiding it whenever there isn't a mag within the weapon, or whenever you're going to reload the magazine. So it will use the selection, it will just hide it, and then bring it back once it's reloaded. So obviously I provide all my files in a test folder when I publish this, but that should now be us set up for the initial test and loading of it. So what we want to do is quickly go here, we want to change this. I personally just go through File Explorer because it's a little bit simpler than going through here, because obviously you can get a bit lost here. So you always want to leave binarize on, especially if you're using models. So if we quickly build that, hopefully it should come across as build successful. We now want to go back to our launcher. I have a few mods that we usually generically test with. In an absolute case, you want to load with no mods apart from your test mod, but I just use this for ease. more for the ace arsenal. So we should now be able to load up completely and be able to see everything within the ace arsenal within our weapon, and it should be able to fire, it should be able to reload, but obviously we'll see. Sometimes it works first time, sometimes you just need to quickly go over it again, but we'll just wait for Arma to pop up. I'm more hoping that I went over everything for it to work. It usually does after this, but we'll just have a quick test. So obviously the number one thing is we should see our test rifle up here. It is green. There is currently no muzzle flash, but that's the good thing. So before we do any scopes or testing, we're just going to check if it's definitely working. Whenever you fire, there is both a muzzle flash in first person and third person, which means that is working. So if we now go back to Ace Arsenal, we can now slap on a scope. So obviously this is dependent on where you put it, so I would probably lower this proxy quite a bit, because obviously it's currently hovering above the rail. But I would always test out with whatever scope you want to use. For instance, if you don't have a long enough rail, it's going to look very out of place. So yeah, we just need to move this proxy down, and then it should be golden. And that is how you get a generic rifle within Arma. So we'll do one final test just to see if the mag definitely goes across. So we should see it disappear. There we go, and then it reappears. And then if we just do, oh, that's my settings, an alternate reload, it should show up empty. Obviously you don't really have to worry about the placement of the hands right now, go over that in a future tutorial, but this should now be completely working as a weapon. So in the next video I'll probably go over shadows and further geometry, and also how to get a proper texture going and how to do hand anims. This was just a generic test just to see if we can get A to B, and it can shoot, it can reload, and it can basically work. So I'll include everything below, and hopefully any questions feel free to ask, but it should hopefully work for you. Alright,